And we're doing the teachings of Matthew in 807 in little Bibles. We started this many years ago, and we're winding it down. But let's take a look at the Bible in a way that many have chosen not to do. And let's not look at this as a literal interpretation at all. Let's bring it alive so that you can understand what happens when you comply and you realize that your crucifixion and Jesus' crucifixion are one. At the point of the crucifixion of the lower senses is what's being talked about here. The barrier to the holy place on the right side falls. We hear about the visualizations and the things that are happening and healing, all this kind of business. And the reason that it's occurring in this age so beautifully is that in obeying Jesus Christ and seeking the meditation, we open up the higher mind, which in turn energizes the right side, which is the holy place. Okay, let's take a look, and we'll show you what I'm talking about. We're talking about crucifixion, not in a literal sense. I have always, and I have a problem with it. I've always had a problem with it since I've been a little child, and I always felt that if God could not think of a better way to forgive me than by torturing somebody to death, He was as screwed up as I was. And I will say that till I die, you know. There's got to be a better way that nature can come away with saving us all than by bloody, barbaric torture of a human being. And then when I was able to read in the Gospel of Thomas, one of the apocryphal books of the Bible that the church did not allow to be entered, and I saw in the apocryphal book that John, the beloved John, who wrote the book of Revelation, came to the cross and cried bitterly and looked and he says, I can't stand this. And he ran up to a mountain and he ran into a cave to get away from it all. And there standing in front of him was Jesus, and they both laughed. And Jesus said to John, what they say I suffered, I didn't suffer. And John went down and he saw all the people looking at the cross and all of this stuff crying, and he went away laughing, and he says, and I realized that God did all of this symbolically for the salvation of mankind. What a relief. Whew. What a load off of me to know that there's no God. The God that I follow makes pussycats and puppy dogs and roses and dolphins and heals people and makes nice things. Doesn't butcher anybody. Doesn't drop bombs and all of the fear and guilt. So it was, you know, when I look and then I realize this symbolically, and I start looking at what does it mean. And I get to Matthew chapter 27, verse 51, and after Jesus and the death of Jesus on the cross, it says, and behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain, was split in two from the top to the bottom. From the top to the bottom. And basically what's being said here is that when the meditation takes place within you, when the crucifixion of the five senses through your taking no thought, just as Jesus said, Jesus didn't say take no thought for no reason. He meant for you to take no thought. He said it 5 times in Matthew 6:25 to 6:33. He says, I want you to practice the single eye in Matthew 6:22. That's Hindu, believe it or not. Of course, Christianity can have no part in it. But when you have no part in it, you have no part in Jesus. And Jesus says, I want you to practice the single eye. And in the very next sentence, to know what you were talking about, he says, take no thought 5 times. And take no thought means exactly that. Subdue all of the thoughts of your mind, because it is the thoughts of your mind that have made you sick. Subdue the thoughts of your mind and set free the power of the Christ who dwells within you. And what happens? When you subdue, you crucify the flesh, you crucify the 5 senses of sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing. What does it say in the Bible? What happens? The veil in the temple is split from the top. From the higher realms of inner consciousness, the split occurs, opening to you the kingdom of God, opening to you the right hemisphere. See what it says? The veil of the temple was split from the top to the bottom, from the realms of divine consciousness within you in the higher mind, all the way down into your carnal physical body is free, set free and open. How? How do I learn this? How do I do this? By obeying Jesus Christ and practicing the single eye. By obeying Jesus Christ and seeking the kingdom within you. By obeying Jesus Christ and entering in and casting your energy to the right side. That's how. Nothing more than that. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to join anything. You don't have to come here. Anywhere you are, you can obey Jesus Christ and enter within and energize the healing, divine, beautiful power that flows from on high. So it's rent from the top to the bottom. Look what it says. And the earth did quake. You know what that means? You don't think the way you did anymore. The mind changes. There's a shaking down of the way you used to think. You're thinking beautifully. You're thinking differently. You're not thinking in the old competitive way you used to think anymore. You're thinking in the loving, compassionate way. You're thinking in the way of newness. You're thinking in a way with nature and with life. And you're thinking in the way with the cosmos and all of the beautiful things, and you want to be a part of it all. I did a little television show yesterday, and I was saying to people, you know, the doggone thing that ticks me off, you get all of these religious people, and they talk about scientific astrology, and they say you can't have any part in it, don't go near it, it's evil, and all of this stuff. And yet in the very first page of the Bible, it says that God made the stars for signs. What signs? Why don't you want to find out what the signs mean? And then in Psalm 147 it says, and he named all of them. Well, if he calls them names, what do they mean? Why did he call them what he called them? And in Job 38 it says, can you bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades? The influences of the Pleiades. And then just happens to be that the Apostle Paul in the book of Acts sails in a ship named Castor and Pollux, which are the stars of Gemini. I mean, you know, and everybody, oh, don't look at it. And that's what we've done. We haven't looked at it, and we don't even appreciate or understand the universe that we live in. All of the things that religion has told us not to do are what Jesus told us to do, what the Bible tells us to do. So we've turned our back on the Bible, we've turned our back on Jesus Christ to satisfy all of this religious stuff, which according to the newspapers hides behind closed doors to cook up all the screwball things that it does. The church is running around with pedophiles and all kinds of child abuse. Any other place that had the FBI crawling all over the place, they'll rip it down. But no, it's covered under the God's holy house. The house of God. You know, there's an interesting thing here. And it says in Matthew 27:51, and the rocks rent. You know what that means? You know what rocks are about? Rocks are spiritual essences that the human cannot get inside of. They're solid. But look what happened. They split. All of those things inside of you which are of the Spirit that you can never touch with your mind, you can never touch with your thoughts, you can never touch with your prayers, split and they're energized from inside of you. All of the glory and all of the beautiful things that are pouring forth all over the world today. I want to just, when it says the veil rent, I want to just take you for a moment so that you try to get an understanding of it. Let's take a look at the veil that's split. Let me show you what it means. Go to page 70 in the Bible to Exodus chapter 26, okay? Exodus chapter 26. And if you look at verse 31. And look what it says about the veil, okay? And you shall make a veil of blue, purple, scarlet. There's a reason for that. The veil of blue, purple, and scarlet stands for peace, kingship, and love. That's what's available to you. When you meditate as Jesus said, and when you energize the right side as Jesus said, and when you open that single eye as Jesus said, you are flooded from on high with peace, kingship, or dominion over those things which hurt you. That's where it comes from. And love. See, that you can't have, see, you can't go into the Bible and say, oh, well, the veil was blue, purple, and scarlet, and then close the book. You can't do that. You've got to find out why was it blue, why was it purple, why was it scarlet, what do those words mean? You know what the trouble is with the Bible? And this is what people don't understand. We are Western people reading a book that was composed by the people of the East who write in allegory, in symbols, and mysticism, and we've tried to read this stuff literally, having total ignorance about how those people write, even though the Bible says it's allegorical. We chose not to do. But there's another interesting thing here, okay? Look at verse 51. Where was I? Matthew, no, wait a minute, 26:31. Look at it. And it says, a blue and scarlet and fine twined linen of cunning work, with whose, look what it says, cherubims. Do you see that word, cherubim? Huh? Now I want to show you something. You know what the human face means in the Bible? It means intelligence. You know what the face of a lion means? It means spirit. Human. Here's how you can determine that this purple, blue, and scarlet and veil is attributed not to, you know, a building somewhere, but it's talking about you. Watch this. Keep your finger right where you are. Go to page 715 in that little Bible. Look at the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 41. All right, page 715, Ezekiel chapter 41, and look at verse 18. Okay. And it was made with cherubims and palm trees. So the palm tree was between a cherub, and every cherub had two faces. So that the face of a man was toward the palm tree on the one side, and the face of a young lion was toward the palm tree on the other side. This beautiful veil is that which separates the intellect from the spirit. Okay? It's that which is totally consumed with talking about your consciousness. The face of a lion, the face of a human being. Okay? So let's go back for just 1 minute, and I want to show you the purpose of this veil. Going back to page 70, Exodus chapter 26, verse 33. Okay? And it talks about hanging it up. And then at the last sentence it says, "And the veil shall divide unto you between the holy place and the most holy place." The holy place is the mind. The most holy place is the temple of the mind, the right side. The right hemisphere of the brain is the right side. Okay? That's where it is 90%. All you have that you have control over is 10% of your mind. And that's why God in the Bible says, "I want you to tithe. Give me the 10%. And what has religion done? They've made it into a money thing. Yeah. Give me 10% of your money. You know, it's not what it meant. It never meant that. And nowhere in the Bible, even in the beginning, did it ever mean you give 10% of your money. It was done symbolically as tithing was 10% of what grows out of the ground. And what grows out of the ground means the thoughts that grow out of your head. I want that. You give me the thoughts that grow out of your head, and I'll give you the cosmos. I'll give you the universe. Because it is the thoughts that grow out of your head that keep you away from God. That's what tithing means. Okay? But people who are, think the way they do, use it to grab 10% of the money that comes out of your wallet. So there's the place of the temple. It divides the holy place from the most holy place. Okay, now we have to find out where was the most holy place. The most holy place is in the temple. The temple that is made where God dwells is the temple that is not made with human hands. The only temple that exists in the universe that is not made with human hands is where? Right here. Right on the side of your face. The temple. The holy place of consciousness. And let's go and take a look at the construction of the temple so we see what we're talking about, because it's very important when we talk about this veil in the holy place. Page 296. Okay, page 296, 1 Kings chapter 6. Okay? Now we're talking what they also called it in the Bible was the middle chamber. It's the middle chamber of the temple, which is the most holy place. And I want you to see where it is, and then, I leave this to you. I'm not here to tell you you've got to believe anything. I'm just trying to give you something to think about for the first time, maybe, since you've been involved in religious, quote-unquote, work. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. The door for the middle chamber, which was the holy place, was in the right side of the house. That is the right hemisphere of the brain. And they went up with winding stairs, which is the kundalini, into the middle chamber and out into the third, which is the third heaven. So let's go back to page 807, okay, where we started with Matthew chapter 27, verse 51. Okay, Matthew chapter 27, verse 51. So that when the Lord is crucified, now it opens the veil. So we understand that when you go into meditation, what's going to happen when you obey Jesus Christ and you meditate and you get that single eye activated as Jesus Christ said to do, what's going to happen is the veil that separates you from the intellect, from the right hemisphere of the brain, which is the God side, is going to fall. And you'll be able to begin to understand things. You become enlightened, and the power that is on the right side that can heal and make you better will flow, okay? And what does it say? So at Matthew 27, chapter 27, verse 52, what does it say? And it says, "And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept and came out of their graves," and so forth and so on. And it says, "And they came out of the graves and went into the holy city and appeared unto many." Is this literal? I mean, is it literal that upon this time of crucifixion, graves popped open and dead bodies climbed out? How, but do you know so many people who call themselves Christians who wouldn't have it any other way and who believe that, do you know the condition of those people when they would come out of that box? Dust. But how could we even say we're intelligent people and walk into churches and say, I believe this? You're not supposed to believe that. And I'll prove that you're not supposed to believe that. It says in Job 7:9, he that goes down to the grave shall come up no more. But what does the Apostle Paul say? Go and look at page 942, 1 Corinthians chapter 15. See what the Apostle Paul says. And let's please read it and believe it. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 42. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. That means when you put a body into that which is the spiritual grave, physically, it is raised spiritually. No human being has ever died, gone into a grave, and got out of it. And that's part of the reason we don't understand Jesus Christ. That's part of the reason we don't understand Christianity. That's part of the reason we don't understand the Bible, because we have chosen to take literally that which Jesus Christ says, unto you is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom, but to them that are without, all these things are done in parables. Quote unquote Jesus Christ. He said to us, it's symbolic, for God. Don't be a fakakta and take this stuff literally. Understand it. And once you understand it, you will come out of your grave and rise and go into the holy city. Don't you know what it means? We have been resting, longing in the graves of the carnal mind all of our lives. And finally, as we energize this power, we come out of the graves of the lower mind and enter into this holy city of the higher mind. You're at 1 Corinthians 15, verse 42. Go ahead to 1 Corinthians 15:50 and see if a dead body can come out of a grave. See what Paul says. What does he say? Now I say this to you, brethren. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, and neither does corruption inherit incorruption. Once a body is dead, it's dead. It's like an old junk car. I don't want any. It's gone. Now look what it says in Matthew 27:52, where we are, the graves, see, they open up and the people go into, and I'll show you another way. When you look in the Bible and you know something is definitely symbolic. Do you know how you know? Matthew is the only one that mentions this. Don't you think in the whole, Paul doesn't know anything about it. Paul was a big shot in Jerusalem at the time. He never heard of this. If people were getting out of the Forked River Cemetery, do you think you'd hear about it? He never heard about it. He never heard about it. Mark never heard about it. John never heard about it. Luke never heard about it. They never mentioned it. You're talking, can you imagine one person getting out of a grave? Just one person. And CNN would be there. Here we are, we're waiting. And here he comes, all right, I see the hand. They'll meet you at the CNN will be wherever anything happens, they'll be there. Okay? And here you have a situation where all of these people get out of the graves and nobody knows about it. Paul never heard of it, Luke never heard of it, Mark never heard of it, and so forth. But now notice something. They come out of the graves, they enter into the holy city. Now that's the important thing to understand. So let's start, being adult and really appreciate the Bible. You come out of the grave, you go into the holy city. What's the holy city? The holy city is Jerusalem. Now, this would lead you to think, and you've always thought all of your life, that all of these people got out of the cemetery and marched down to Jerusalem. What a ragtag bunch this was heading down to town. Hey, call the state troopers. There's a motley-looking crew heading down for the town. They're all stopping at the Jerusalem a-go-go, and we'll just get these people out of here. All right, watch this now. Let's take a look at this. The holy city. Go to page 953 and see what the holy city is. The Apostle Paul is going to tell you. Or, hey, come on. I may say some wacky things up here, but I'll tell you something. Everything that I've ever said to you in this room, you've confirmed, you've looked into the Bible, and you saw for yourself. And you know doggone well you have. Okay? Galatians chapter 4, page 953, verse 25. Paul says there are two Jerusalems. And when you talk about the holy city, let's get it right. Galatians chapter 4, verse 25. This Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and answers to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. That's the city. That's the town. But look at the next Jerusalem. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. Not the father of us all, folks. The mother of us all. Because that holy city that dwells in your consciousness at the right side is the feminine spirit of God waiting to embrace you and to wipe away your tears and make you well within you. And all you've got to do to touch her and for her to place her arms around you and take you to the Christ in the holy city is drop your thoughts and your ways and your ideas and your convictions and just come as a child with absolutely nothing within. So when the lower 5 senses are crucified, in meditation, you're free from the grave of the lower mind, and you come to life and you rise up and you go into the holy city, which is above and is the mother of us all. Do you see that? Did you read it in the book? So what do we know? How do we know? How do we know? The Bible told us. And that's important. Because when we go out and we get a lot of flack from people up here that don't understand. They think you're down here sacrificing cats and drinking Kool-Aid and all kinds of stuff like that. They don't know. They don't know. Huh? They don't know. So that when you go, so that when you talk to them, I want you to use the Bible. You use the Bible. What is this? Oh, root beer. All right, quick. Because that's true. This woman could dispose of me so quick, I don't even know what she gives me. Every morning I come out and there are pills, 30 pills. There could be cyanide, anything. I gobble them up. Here, she hands you a pill. Yeah. You know, because she just had the guy with the insurance guy was around a few. Take a blood pressure. Oh, we're going to give you insurance. I said, for what? For her. I ain't getting paid.
You're paying for it.
I'm paying for it. So she gives me a pill. I said, hey, okay. Yeah, you just take it with that. Okay, real quick. Now, I'm going to show you the next aspect of this. Matthew 27, verse 54. And I want you to understand something. When you begin to realize the symbolisms of all this, we'll talk about it in a few weeks, but there is this Mithra, this god of Iran, who also was born on December the 25th, who also was crucified, and who also rose from the grave on March 25th during the spring equinox. And that happened 600 years before Jesus. But nobody ever told you about that, because that screws up your story. But you can read about it. You can go into the library and you can get a book on mythology. You can get a book and you can read about what happened in Iran 600 years before it happened in Jerusalem. Okay. And it doesn't mean it's not a Jesus. Don't get it wrong. I follow Jesus right off to the end of the cliff. I'll go anywhere he goes. I listen to everything. I do not say a thing unless he confirms it. The reason I speak of taking no thought is because Jesus said it. The reason I say you practice the single eye is because Jesus said it. The reason I say the kingdom is at the right hemisphere of the brain is because Jesus said it. The reason I say you take away the key because you don't enter within yourself is because Jesus said it. And no other reason than that. People get ticked off at me, but I can stand with this book and say, hey, wait a minute, it says it here. So they don't bother me anymore, do they? Nobody bother me. Nobody says that anyway. They only surround the people. They come down and get the kids going to the bathroom. Oh, this is evil. Remember that time? Was it Sean? Yeah. And Sean got in her car and chased him up the highway. What you should do. Because they're devils. No, they're not. They're just... Okay. Matthew 27, verse 54. Take that out that I said that. When the centurion that were with him watching Jesus saw the earthquake... That's page 807. Surely, the centurion is the part of you. Don't you understand? There is a part of you which is the leading factor of your mind. That's the centurion. That's the directive principle of your mind. And do you know what? There's a part in you that when you offer that sacrifice in meditation and that veil rents and you open the right hemisphere of the brain, it will inside of you say, surely this is the Son of God. Then is the point that you will know, surely this is right. Surely this is right. And that's what happened. The mind has seen the earthquake. Inside of you, you've changed. All of these old fears are shaken down. All of these old hates are shaken down. All of these, and the complete destruction of all of the things that you used to think were very important, not important anymore. Huh? Because you know now I've got to get back and I've got to find nature. I've got to get back. I've got to find out why things are happening. I've got to find out, you know, oh, God bless America. Yeah, but I'm also a citizen of the universe. I'm a citizen of the whole world because God is. God doesn't select. Jesus wasn't an American. God isn't an American. That's the first thing I ever said to get people ticked off. I said, God's not an American. Half the people got up and left. I don't want to hear that. God bless America. See? But the world, the universe, everything is life, is God. To be a part of it, to be one with it. So the mind is awakened and you realize this is God. And now this is the good part. Look what it says in verse 55, page 807. And many women were there beholding afar off, which followed Jesus. This is the first introduction of the woman. Because when you die to the lower, the first thing that happens within you is the feminine side awakes. The feminine part of God awakes. And it's no more the masculine, we're going to fight our way through, kill everybody, destroy, Armageddon's. It's now the pretty side of God, the soft side of God. The women make their first appearance after this death. And it says in Matthew 27, verse 57, and when the evening was coming, there came a rich man of Arimathea named Joseph. Two things you got to look at. Okay? Two things you have to look at if you're going to understand what this means. First of all, the word Joseph means the remover. That's what it means. Okay? The word Arimathea means the city of the Jews. City of the Jews. Okay? Now, it all plays itself out. It all plays its part, and it's very, very important that you understand this, okay? It's important to understand that the lower, which has been taken from the outside, is now taken by a rich man, a disciple. Okay? This is very important. First of all, you always thought that this Joseph of Arimathea, being a rich man, had a lot of money. Doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that at all. In the story, he could have been a rich man with a lot of money. That's allegory. But what is it saying to you? In Revelation 2:9, it talks about, it says, I know how your works and tribulations and your poverty, but you are rich. See? You are rich in the things that matter. Proverbs 10:22 says, the blessings of the Lord makes rich. So the flesh has been killed through meditation. The higher mind becomes rich in the God principle of light, and it takes over our lower psyche. And now something happens. And this is why I tell you to be, when we talk about the meditation and what happens to people physically here that have had such terrible diseases. When you are submitted to this beautiful power, that rich man, that rich mind, which is what it means, that divine principle of God, comes and takes you, that which is dead from the old, and lifts you and takes you to the city of the Jews. That's where healings take place. Very mystical, very beautiful. Did you get what happened? The rich man, which means the mind that is rich in the things of God, then comes and takes you physically. That which is hurt, that which is sick, that which has been so depressed, and lifts you and carries you to the city of the Jews. That's what Joseph of Arimathea means. Okay? And in verse 27, chapter 27, verse 60, after he got the body, it says, he laid it in his own new tomb, which he'd hewn out of rock, and he rolled a great stone, and so forth and so on. It is laid in a tomb, because the lower flesh then is killed. We enter into meditation, and we enter into the rock. You see what happened? We enter inside of the rock. The rock is that part which nothing can enter. But this rock is opened, and now we are placed inside of the rock. Call it the rock of ages, the rock of salvation. But we are inside of the rock. And that's very, very important. In the center of the rock of salvation, in deep meditation, we are still. See, when you are in the center of the rock, the rock is like this. Nothing can get in. No thoughts can get in, no prayers can get in, no religion can get in, no tradition can get in, your parents can't get in, the cops can't get in, the law can't get in, nothing can get in. It's purged, it's pure, it's holy. Nothing can enter into the rock, but hewn out is a spot for you, and they place that which is dead, the old, is inside of the rock. And what comes from the rock? Look what happened. Go to page, this is important, just real quick, Numbers chapter 20. Page 136, Numbers chapter 20. Let me show you what comes from the rock. Knowing as you enter into this that water is truth. Numbers chapter 20, verse 11, okay? And it says, and Moses, page 807, where the heck did I say? 136.
And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he hit the rock twice, and water came out abundantly. And water is truth. That means now that which is the old and dead has been taken by the rich mind, placed in the center of the rock, and from that rock will inundate you with the truth of your experience, the truth of your life, the truth of your health, the truth of your future. I want to show you something very important about a lot of these New Age people that I have some problems with that get into techniques. There's no technique. The only technique about meditation is what Jesus Christ said, take no thought. That's all. Putting earphones on your head and all this other kind of stuff. Let me show you that's addressed right here in that scripture. Did you notice something in there? Numbers 20, verse 11. And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he struck the rock twice. Huh? All you're supposed to do is touch it. Moses had to add a second shot to make it happen. And he got in a lot of trouble for that. He got his divine rear end kicked by God for doing that according to the Bible. He did. He got in a lot of trouble. He said, what'd you do? What'd you hit that twice for? In other words, why do you have to add all of your techniques to meditation? You don't hit it twice. You touch it once. Touch it once, and the water will flow. That's all. That's all Jesus ever asked to do. Jesus said, just take no thought. He didn't say you had to have earphones. You didn't have to smoke or feathers or all of this stuff. He didn't say you had to go sit with your legs sort of wrapped around your back or any of this stuff. He just said, take no thought, and he says it'll flow. That's all there was to it. One time, just do it, and it'll come to you. But Moses hit it twice. And according, if you read the rest of that, you'll see he got in a lot of trouble for that. Because he used a technique. He had to do something. And people say, this is the way to do it. That's the way to do it. I say, Jesus Christ said there's only one way to do it. Take no thought, and it'll happen. Okay? Okay. Now, I'm just about done. Matthew 27, verse 60. And he laid this great stone at the door of the sepulchre and departed. And now the separation is completed. You're in the rock. You've been taken to the mind which is rich in the truth of God, and the stone is rolled wide. Why is the stone rolled? To separate you from the outside. What did Jesus say? What did Jesus tell you how to pray? Jesus used an old Hindu mystical statement in teaching you how to pray, and it's on Matthew 6:6, and he says, when you pray, enter the closet and shut the door. Go into the rock and let the stone be rolled in front of that rock. Seal you off from the outside. Seal you from the religion that you thought was so precious. Seal you from all the priests and the ministers and the evangelists. Seal you from everything and everybody but Christ who dwells within the rock. Inside of you. Huh? The rich man has done his work. He leaves. And now something beautiful happens. As you sit inside of the rock or you lie inside of the rock of meditation, there will be a shaking. And the coming of great light will touch you. And when the rock is rolled away, who will be there? The woman.
Sister from New York.
The woman. The feminine spirit will be there. That's a good line from that. Let me get it, because you had a good line. I bet you had, but I just got to. Sister Veronica standing at the rock. Okay. Let me just tell you, the important part of this, and I don't want you to miss it though, okay, is the fact that when the resurrection does take place, the first one that the Christ mind or the new mind in you will see, it will be the woman, the Spirit. See? So what have we found? Crucifying the lower flesh separates, brings down that veil that separates you from the divine mind. And there in that divine mind you were taken by the rich one who is rich in spirit into the rock, into the holy place where you await the resurrection, await for your beloved to stir. All through meditation, all through simply obeying Jesus Christ. No church you have to join, no place you have to go, no money you have to spend. Just simply take yourself in obedience to him and enter within and raise yourself up to the higher realms of consciousness. Or as Jesus said, in the time of the age of the man with the pitcher of water, Aquarius, enter into yourself, go to the upper room, and I will meet you there. And that's what's happening all over the world. And the only ones that don't understand it are the Christians. The Buddhists understand it. The Hindus understand it. They all know what's going on. The only ones that don't are the Christians, because they didn't know what Jesus was talking about when he says, when you see the man with the pitcher of water, go into the house. But you don't. You know, don't you? Thank you very much for sharing this time in the book of Matthew.